Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Spunkify here for MMOBomb.com, and I want to welcome you to the very first episode here of our new show, MOBA Spotlight, where we take a look at a particular MOBA each week, and we talk about a new champion, a new hero, a new feature, or just, tips and tricks for that particular MOBA of the week. Now, many of you may be thinking, but Shady already had a series called League of Legends Champions. What is this? And that's true, he did have that series, but this kind of expands upon it a little bit, and instead of just being League of Legends every week, it will be various different MOBAs. So this week it'll be League of Legends, next week it may be Dota 2, etc, etc. And with this week, we're going to be actually taking a look at Diana, the Scorn of the Moon, which is League of Legends' newest champion, just released on Tuesday. And Diana, Scorn of the Moon, is an AP-based assassin champion. So she is very nimble, very quick, does a lot of burst damage, and is fairly squishy. Does need to get in and out of battle as quickly as possible. So we're going to do a little brief overview of her abilities. We'll talk about runes, we'll talk about her builds, and her viability in mid lane, jungle, etc. So to begin with here, her abilities, her passive is Moonsilver Blade, which gives her an additional 20% attack speed base. So no matter what level she is, she will always have an additional 20% attack speed. This really ties in with the other part of the passive, which is every third strike cleaves nearby enemies for a particular amount of damage, up to 290 damage plus a percentage of her ability power. This makes for an insane way of clearing creeps. With that cleave every third attack, you can almost build her hybrid and kind of clear creep waves just with that cleave damage. It does a lot of good damage, and it actually allows her to jungle real well. It's one of the main reasons she can jungle so well, because she gets that base attack speed and she gets that base cleave, helping her clear those creep waves really quickly. Secondly, her first ability, which is on Q, is Crescent Strike. Now, Crescent Strike is a, skill shot nuke, but unlike most skill shot nukes, it has a fairly low cooldown, and it actually arcs, so it curves in a kind of circular pattern towards its target. It is not line of fire, which means that you do need to compensate for that curvature, since it won't just hit an enemy directly in front of you, but instead will curve around them to hit whatever is behind them. Usually you can scale that back there to kind of compensate for a little bit, but it does take a little bit of getting used to, and will be a way to distinguish good Diana players from bad ones, those that can actually land that. Her second ability, her W, is called Pale Cascade, and what this does is it provides you with this shield and 3 explosive orbs that surround the shield. Now the shield is a flat amount plus your ability power, and the orbs will damage any enemies around in a small AoE. If all 3 of the orbs actually explode, the shield is refreshed. This makes it, again, great for jungling, because if you activate it and then tank the minions will take the orbs, damaging them, and then it will refresh the shield in general, making sure you don't get hit as much as possible with real damage. Her Moonfall, which is her third ability on her E, is a AoE around her. It doesn't do any damage, but it kind of pulls enemies towards her a little bit and slows them for about 35% for a few seconds here. At max rank, it's 55%. And this is really good, again, for a utility spell, since you can use it to gank individuals, do a lot of high damage to them, and then prevent them from escaping. Or if you're being chased and you can actually slow them down, or need to slow them down, you can use E to disrupt. It also disrupts channel abilities, allowing you to disrupt like a Fiddlesticks channel ultimate or a Katarina ultimate as well. Really good ability, and it's very nice to have that utility as well. It would be comparative to kind of like a Kali's Shroud, and that she mostly has damaging abilities except for the Shroud. Although I do say that Pale Cascade gives her a little bit more survivability than the Kali, just due to the innate double shield that it provides, almost like Lux. Then of course is her ultimate, which is Lunar Rush. Lunar Rush is kind of what makes her a Kali 2.0. Like a Kali, Lunar Rush allows her to dash to an enemy and deal a fairly high significant amount of damage. But unlike a Kali, if she beforehand uses Crescent Strike on an enemy, her Q, that will leave a kind of debuff on the enemy, allowing her to Lunar Rush to the enemy and then immediately have Lunar Rush cooldown reset. Sort of like how Darius' ultimate resets if he kills an enemy, or Katarina's ultimate resets if he kills an enemy as well. But you have to make sure that Crescent Strike did actually hit the target, and you have a few seconds to actually use Lunar Rush on top of that, making it so that you can Lunar Rush onto one particular champion, about 2 times. Now, if you hit multiple individuals, then you could theoretically Lunar Rush to one, then Lunar Rush to another, then Lunar Rush to another, so long as they still have that debuff on them, allowing you to kind of dash around and do a lot of AoE damage, potentially more mobile than a Kali, and it's really great. And it also does proc Spell Vamp and Rhyolize Crystal Slow, so it is very useful to actually catch up to enemies and slow them down. Now, with this set of abilities here, again, it provides a few options for how you want to play Diana. First of all, you have the typical mid role, which she does very well as a high assassin champion. She can really get up into battle, and although she may have an issue with her being melee, Crescent Strike is on a low enough cooldown and a low enough mana cost to allow you to harass from afar, as well as actually kill creeps from afar if you're a little bit scared of actually going in. It also allows you to activate Crescent Strike in order to get the debuff up to then apply Lunar Rush in case you actually want to gank someone without having to worry about getting CC'd or tied up before you actually get to them. It is a very fast activatable time with Lunar Rush, allowing you to dash in there really quick and do the damage. Secondly, we have, of course, the jungle role, and she jungles extremely well. Like I said before, with her passive along with her shield, she takes some very minimal damage here and allows you to basically take boots at level 1 along with 3 health pots and clear the jungle extremely quickly. The other theoretical role she could play is top lane. We have seen Akali go top lane, and she can go top lane as well, especially since she's most likely going to be facing other melee champions, which gives her a little bit of a upper advantage, since she can use her abilities even closer to the minion line, because she doesn't have to fear them using AoE ranged abilities on her and harassing her from afar. She can really have the upper hand there to harass them closely and not really about taking a lot of damage due to her shield. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and talk about, first of all, our runes. So when it comes to runes, I have two main builds I use with her. One of them for the jungle, and then one of them for mid lane. When it comes to the jungle, I go with magic penetration reds, I go flat armor yellows, and I go flat magic resist blues. That gives me a fairly amount of tankiness for the jungle, as well as any type of harassment I need to do or ganks I need to do, and worried about counter harassment from the enemy champions trying to prevent me from killing them. As well, I also go with movement speed contestances. Again, helps me to be super mobile when I'm trying to gank, especially if I'm a jungler, and it helps me move around the creep camps that much faster. Secondly, I have my other page which I use when I'm going mid lane, and it's similar except for I swap out the armor penetration, armor yellows for magic resist yellows, and I switch out the quintessences for flat ability power quintessences. This gives me about 15 ability power, 19 magic resist, and 8.5 magic penetration. This is great for going against other mid laners, since you know most likely you're going to be facing an AP champion, allowing you to dish out an additional damage on them, but not actually sustain that much damage in return. Coupled with the fact that you are melee, this really will help you, kind of burden or shoulder that harassment that you're going to get inevitably in mid lane, since you're actually stacking additional magic resist. Now, when it comes to masteries, there's a couple ways that you can do it, but mostly it's still the same. It's 2109, going all the way in offense, picking up most of the ability power, and then of course getting Executioner from the max. And then you go in utility. I like to get Summoner's Insight, which provides me the cooldown on Flash. I get the Expanded Mind, which gives me a little bit more mana. And then I get Swiftness as well as Runic Affinity. Swiftness, of course, granted me that additional movement speed. Runic Affinity is for the blue buff, allowing it to stay on me longer. This, again, is really useful because you are a melee assassin AP champion, so you do need to be mobile as much as possible and take full use of the blue buff. So I highly recommend doing this for most style of Diana play. Now, when it comes to items in the game, I like to start off either in the jungle or in mid lane with boots and 3 health pods. Again, mobility is key here. You are a melee champion. You will have to dodge skill shots, and you will have to dodge or move around very quickly in order to take advantage of the fact that you're an assassin and you're jungling, or you're an assassin and melee in mid lane. From here, I usually like to go, no matter what, 2 Doran's Rings. It gives me a little bit more sustain, a little bit more damage, and some mana regeneration that helps me out in between blue buffs, as well as just in mid lane in general. From there, I like to save up just to get a death cap. I'll get a large rod, and then after I get the large rod, I'll finish that into a death cap, and then I can just change up my build depending on who I'm against. Death cap is key though. That death cap will actually provide you a lot of burst damage, and you will be super scary at this point. Now, a lot of people are like, why don't you just play your hybrid? Why don't you go Malady, Rageblade, etc.? And it's true, you could do that stuff, but I feel like she really doesn't benefit from that in the mid and early game as much as she benefits from just going straight AP. You could get a Lichbane later on in the game, and perhaps even a Malady or a Rageblade, but I feel like the early AP, that flat AP, is going to be what's necessary for you to do the maximum amount of damage. Her burst is insane with just AP. It's crazy. I cannot tell you how good it actually feels to burst someone down from full HP to 0 in just like 2 or 3 attacks. It's really great, and I highly recommend going that style of build. So once you get Death Cap, you can go a couple options like Royalized Crystal Scepter. You can get an Abyssal Scepter if you're fearful of enemy AP champions. You can even go, of course, a GA or a Void Staff if they're building heavy amounts of MR. Even a Lich Bait for like a final item, since, you know, combined with your Crescent Slash and then, of course, your ultimate and your passive, you can do some pretty scary auto attacks. Overall, though, I feel that Diana is a ton of fun. Really great champion. I don't feel she's overpowered or underpowered. I feel she's in a really good spot. They could possibly take the cooldown of Crescent Strike down just a bit, or maybe take down the shield amount on Pale Cascade. But otherwise, I feel she's a great champion. And if you're a fan of League of Legends, fan of AP, and fan of Assassins, or just any of those in general, I highly recommend trying out Diana, as she is a favorite pick of mine for AP champions. I haven't really had a favorite pick of AP champions in a while, and Diana, I just feel right at home with her. So much fun. But that's been my first look there at Diana, guys. If you guys want to learn more about League of Legends or Diana, you guys can check down below at MOBABomb.com for all that information here. Next week, we'll take a look at a different MOBA and a different champion or feature in the game. You guys can leave down your suggestions below what I should check out. But otherwise, I'll see you guys for the next episode. Spunkify out.